Welcome to the deep dive. I mean, whether you're a GC prepping for your next big bid or a subcontractor just trying to protect your margins from vanishing overnight, you are definitely in the right place.
Absolutely.
Because today is March 5, 2026, and we've got some breaking news that is just flipping the construction industry upside down right now.
Yeah, the landscape is shifting literally as we speak.
Right. So just today, the National Association of Home Builders sat down with the U.S. Trade Representative. And the stakes for this meeting are massive. We were talking about historic tariffs hitting the baseline cost of nearly every material you use on a job site.
Which is terrifying for anyone holding a fixed price contract right now.
Exactly. But look, our mission for this deep dive isn't just to give you a doom and gloom news recap.
No, nobody needs more of that.
Right. We want to build a concrete, actionable survival playbook. The goal is to figure out how your business can actually survive and maybe even thrive under these crushing new material costs.
Because there are ways to do it. You just have to be strategic.
Exactly. And to get there, we are pulling from a really incredible stack of sources today. Specifically, we're relying heavily on the market intelligence and analytic reports from Smart Business Automator to just cut through all the noise and get to the real data.
Yeah, because in this environment, you have to understand the why behind the numbers. That is the only way you're going to protect every dollar on your schedule of values.
I am so excited to unpack this with you. Let's just try to avoid the heavy jargon and get right into the breaking point, which is the 2026 tariff landscape.
Let's do it.
So the numbers hitting the wire today are just staggering. I mean, steel tariffs are now confirmed at 50%.
A 50% jump.
Aluminum is up 33%, and copper wire, which, goes into pretty much everything, has jumped 36%.
It's a massive structural repricing of risk. If you're an estimator looking at a project that breaks ground in, say, 6 months,
right,
you're now forced to model in a 50% swing on your structural steel. But the thing is, the base percentage is actually only part of the nightmare here.
Because of the Section 122 global surcharge.
Exactly. You have to factor in Section 122.
Break that down for us. What exactly is the 122 doing?
So Section 122 is this additional 10% blanket surcharge. It gets layered right on top of those massive base tariffs we just mentioned. But the truly critical detail here is the timeline.
The 150-day window, right?
Yes, the 150-day review window. This 10% surcharge is basically a temporary measure that's currently set to expire in July.
Pending a formal review.
Right. So after that review in July, it might get extended indefinitely, or it might just completely fall off.
Which creates this totally bifurcated pricing reality for contractors.
It's an absolute headache for scheduling.
Because you've got the reality of the next 5 months where that 10% is guaranteed to be in your quotes, and then a totally unknown reality for August and beyond.
Exactly. Smart contractors are building their entire contingencies around that specific 150-day deadline.
So how does that change the way they plan a job?
You basically have to extrapolate your delivery schedules. You look at your critical path and ask, okay, what do we absolutely need to take delivery of before July?
Because those materials are getting hit with that extra 10%.
Exactly. And that cost has to go into your current bid. But then you ask, what can we safely push until August or September, hoping that the 10% drops off?
So you're not just scheduling for efficiency anymore.
No, you're scheduling for tariff avoidance.
Wow. And the crazy thing is, the market is already reacting. I mean, construction input prices rose 0.7% month over month in January alone.
Yeah, which is significant.
Right, and that was before the latest Section 122 tariffs even legally took effect.
The market always prices in the anxiety early.
Yeah.
And when we look at the market intelligence and analytic reports from Smart Business Automator, the data backs this up entirely.
It's not a fluke.
No, their tracking shows this isn't a temporary blip. It's a fundamental structural shift in how these materials are being priced from the port all the way to the job site.
Let's talk about the collateral damage of that shift, starting with the residential guys. The NAHB data shows these tariffs add exactly $10,900 to the cost of every single new home.
Just right off the top.
Right off the top.
Yeah.
And the Center for American Progress is projecting that 450,000 fewer homes are going to be built through 2030 because of this.
Which is a huge blow to housing supply.
It's massive.
Yeah.
And it completely changes builder behavior, doesn't it?
Totally, because look at the reality. The product suddenly costs nearly $11,000 more to build, but the home buyer doesn't magically have an extra $11,000 in purchasing power.
Right, mortgage rates are still what they are.
Exactly. So the builder can't just pass that whole cost along. What do? The data tells us that 36% of home builders are actually cutting their prices right now just to move the inventory they have.
That's wild. It's complete race to the bottom.
It is. They're eating that $10,900 hit entirely out of their own margins just to keep cash flowing.
But that margin compression doesn't just stop with the developer.
No, it bleeds all the way down.
Right, if you're the framing contractor or the plumber or the electrician pulling that copper wire, the GC is coming to you saying, hey, I'm eating a loss on this lot. You need to lower your bid for the next phase.
It creates a super toxic bidding environment where subs are just cannibalizing their own overhead and profit just to keep their guys working.
And it's not just residential. If we look at the commercial reality, 43% of general contractors are currently reporting project cancellations.
Cancellations, postponements, scaling back the scope.
Yeah, and they're citing these specific tariff-driven costs as the direct reason.
Because the pro forma doesn't pencil out anymore for the developer. But, we really need to provide some macro perspective here on the whole material versus labor dynamic.
Yeah, let's pivot to that. Because the headline numbers, 50% steel, 36% copper, sound like the whole project cost is going up 40%.
But it's not. The aggregate material cost inflation for a commercial build is actually forecast at maybe 2 to 4% for 2026.
Wait, how does a 50% spike in steel only mean a 2 to 4% increase for the whole project?
Because on a standard commercial mid-rise, structural steel might only be 8 to 10% of the total project budget.
Ah, okay.
Most of the building is concrete, drywall, finishes stuff that is domestically sourced and heavy to ship, so it's somewhat insulated from these specific import tariffs.
So a 50% bump on a line item that's only 9% of the budget only moves the final needle a few points.
Right, which means the developer might only see a 3% overall increase.
Which doesn't sound that bad for them.
It isn't bad for them, but it is absolutely catastrophic for the steel fabricator or the erector.
Oh, man.
Because if you're the sub holding that steel package, your specific localized costs just jumped 50%.
And if you're in a fixed price contract, your whole year's profit is just gone.
Wiped out on one job. And this ties into the labor issue. While material inflation aggregate is 2 to 4%, the labor pressure is arguably a much greater threat.
Because of the massive worker gap.
Right. We have a 499,000 worker gap in the industry. Labor costs are in a permanent structural climb.
So you have this dual pressure, volatile imported materials and skyrocketing labor costs.
Exactly. And since you have zero leverage over the macroeconomic labor shortage, ruthlessly mitigating your material risk is basically the only controllable variable you have left.
Which perfectly transitions us to the next phase of this deep dive, margin armor.
Contract language.
Contract language that actually saves you. Because what does all this mean for the contractor bidding a job tomorrow? If you're bidding fixed price without protection right now, you're playing Russian roulette.
You're basically acting as an uncompensated, unlimited insurance policy for the owner's material risks.
So what's the fix? What is the exact contract language needed to survive?
Well, first of all, those vague market conditions clauses are dead.
The ones that say, like, price is subject to change based on availability.
Yeah, completely dead. They fall apart in mediation instantly. If you want to survive, your escalation clauses must be tied directly to published, undeniable indices.
Like the BLS PPI.
Yes, the Bureau of Labor Statistics Producer Price Index for construction materials. But you can't just say tied to the BLS PPI.
You need a specific subindex, right?
Exactly. You find the specific series ID for prefabricated structural steel, for example, and you write in a specific baseline date, a threshold like a 3% delta, and exactly how the contract sum increases if the index crosses that threshold.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate. If I'm an owner financing a $20 million build and you hand me an escalation clause that says I have to write you a blank check if the global market goes crazy, I'm not signing that.
And they shouldn't sign it. That's where the psychology of managing the client comes in. To get an owner to execute this, the clause must be bidirectional.
Bidirectional, meaning it goes both ways.
Right. You have to include upward and downward adjustments. You sit down with the owner and say, look, we have this 10% Section 122 surcharge right now. If it drops off in July and the BLS index for steel plummets, your final contract value drops with it.
Oh, wow. So you're actually offering them a mechanism for savings.
Yes. You're framing it as a shared risk. If prices drop, the owner saves money. That shared risk framing is what gets the ink dry. You position yourselves on the same side of the table against the market.
That is brilliant. And it leads to this massive behavioral shift we're seeing. The industry is rapidly pivoting away from fixed price entirely.
The rise of T&M.
Yeah, time and materials contracts are just surging. It's so significant that E&R is actually hosting a dedicated industry-wide webinar on March 18th.
Just to teach contractors how to manage T&M profitably in this environment.
Exactly, because owners who usually hate T&M because it feels like a blank check are realizing that if they force a fixed price today, the GC is going to bake in a massive 20% contingency fee just to cover the tariff risk.
The owner pays for that risk premium whether the steel actually goes up or not. With T&M, they only pay the true realized cost.
And our research partners flagged this super early. The analytic reports from Smart Business Automator showed a clear pattern of contractors abandoning fixed price models the absolute moment that 50% steel tariff was even rumored.
They didn't wait for the official announcement, they moved immediately.
But getting the contract right is only half the battle. You still have to physically buy the stuff. Which brings us to bidding and procurement.
The absolute chaos of procurement right now.
Total chaos. We are officially witnessing the death of the 90-day bid.
Oh, it's completely gone.
It used to be you'd get a quote from a supplier, and it was good for months. Now
Supplier, quote, validity windows are shrinking to weeks. And for stuff like copper, literally days.
That's a nightmare for an estimator.
Yeah.
If your quote is only good for 48 hours, but the owner's award process takes 6 weeks, you are incredibly exposed.
Which is why contractors have to adopt a totally new procurement playbook immediately. And there are 3 specific strategies they need to employ.
Okay, let's hit them. What's number 1?
Number 1 is locking prices early. You have to separate the pricing event from the delivery event.
So you're negotiating with the supplier at the moment the contract is awarded, not when you need the material delivered.
Right. You go to them and say, I have the executed contract. I'm committing the purchase order today at today's tariff rate, but I need you to warehouse it and defer delivery for 4 months.
Okay, that makes sense. What's strategy number 2?
Domestic sourcing alternatives. For 20 years, we hunted for the cheapest imported materials, but a 50% tariff changes the math.
Because domestic producers aren't hit by the import tariffs.
Exactly. So you shift your supply chain domestic. Now, the domestic base price might be 15% higher, and the lead time might be longer.
But you're buying cost certainty.
Exactly. In 2026, absolute cost certainty is way more valuable than the lowest theoretical imported base price. You guarantee the number won't jump another 50% while it's sitting on a cargo ship.
Love that. Okay, what's the third strategy?
Pre-purchasing. This is aggressive but necessary. You buy the materials up front in month 1 and you store them.
But how does a mid-sized subcontractor afford to buy a $500,000 copper package up front? Their cash flow isn't set up for that.
You have to utilize material deposit requirements in your billing. During contract negotiations, you insert provisions allowing you to bill for off-site stored materials.
And you use a bonded warehouse and a certificate of insurance to make the owner's lender comfortable.
Precisely. You essentially use the owner's initial draws to fund the pre-purchase.
But how do these contractors actually know when to trigger these massive pre-purchases? You can't just guess.
No, you can't rely on gut feelings anymore. The most successful contractors are using data. According to the latest market intelligence from Smart Business Automator, top-tier contractors are tracking commodity price movements in real time.
Real-time tracking is huge.
It is. Smart Business Automator actually alerts subscribers before these price spikes hit their local bids. It gives them a 2 to 3 week procurement head start.
That head start is everything. It's the difference between locking in last month's price and watching your margin evaporate. Okay, so this gets us to what I think is really the most uncomfortable part of all this. Eventually, you have to look the project owner in the eye and tell them the price just went up.
Yes. The client conversation.
How do you explain cost increases without totally losing the client or getting sued?
It requires a framework of radical transparency. The old instinct to hide the numbers or blend them into general conditions will destroy trust instantly today.
You have to bring the receipts.
Literally. You show them the BLS PPI data, you show them the 50% steel tariff impact.
You frame the tariffs as an external force.
Yes. You position the contractor and the owner on the same side of the table against market volatility. You say, look at what the global market is doing to our budget. Here is the problem, and here is how I am actively managing this crisis for us.
That makes them view you as a strategic partner, not just a vendor who's gouging them.
Exactly. It's all about systems over reactions.
Systems over reactions. I think that synthesizes this entire deep dive into one perfect philosophy.
The contractors who survive 2026 won't be the ones who arbitrarily raise their prices 20% and cross their fingers.
Right.
They will be the ones who fundamentally restructure how they buy, when they buy, and what they buy.
Exactly. It's about relying on solid data to build those systems. The market intelligence and analytic reports from Smart Business Automator show that users who restructure their bid packages based on real-time material trend data completely avoid the guesswork that killed profit margins back in late 2025.
You cannot fly blind in a storm like this.
You really can't. All right, let's briefly recap the actionable takeaways for everyone listening.
Number 1, ditch vague contract terms and get those bidirectional escalation clauses tied to the BLS PPI.
Number 2, strongly consider pivoting to T&M contracts to shield yourself from that massive tariff risk premium.
Number 3, rewrite your procurement playbook. Lock prices at the award date, pivot to domestic sourcing for cost certainty, and restructure your billing to pre-purchase and store materials off-site.
And finally, when you have to talk to the owner, use radical transparency. Bring the data and share the risk.
It's a daunting landscape. A 50% steel tariff and a $10,900 residential hit is no joke. But there is a clear, proven playbook here.
There absolutely is. Now, as we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final forward-looking question to mull over.
Yeah, let's look at the long-term impact of all this.
Because if massive tariffs are pushing contractors to aggressively pre-purchase materials and permanently pivot to domestic suppliers just for cost certainty.
Are we witnessing the permanent end of just-in-time construction supply chains?
Right. For decades, we optimized for materials arriving exactly when we needed them to save on storage. But if that's dead, how will you need to redesign your company's cash flow to support a world where whoever holds the inventory holds the power?
It's a huge question. The balance sheet is going to look completely different in 5 years.
It really is. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Your homework for this week is to go audit your active contracts and start implementing these defensive strategies today. We will catch you on the next one.